अस्मद्गुरुपरम्परायै नमः। ॐ आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत्। अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मेऽस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। I welcome you all to the next session on the introduction to the Vishistadvaita Vedanta. In the previous session, we had gone through few of the fundamental concepts, just a couple of them, which are very important for us to understand. Like there are two kinds of objects, basically. One is inert material and everything, like body and all that. Other is spiritual. So one is a material entity, another is spiritual entity. This is inert entity. And every object, whether it is the material or spiritual, it has two aspects, the essential nature and the attributive nature, which is called the Swarupa. Essential nature is called Swarupa in Sanskrit. Attributive nature is called by different names in Guna, Dharma, Visheshana, Jati. These are all attributes of a substance. So this is something fundamental to Vishistadvaita, which we need to understand. And we talk about Tattva-traya, Tattva and all that. What is Tattva means? It's akalpita vastu, which is not imagined, but it is real substance. And the attributive part in that Visheshana, there are two types, inseparable and separable attributes. Both are there. Some are inseparable, some are separable. So normally in this world, we see separable attributes are all objects. Inseparable attributes are like color and class and things like that. But with respect to in the Vedantic system, with respect to the Brahman, even substances can be inseparable attributes. That we will see as we go forward. And the nature of this is another important thing, is that attribute and nature can both be consciousness. For a spiritual entity, both attribute and substance can be consciousness, of the nature of consciousness. Jnana, we say. So a Jivatma and Paramatma are knowers. Jnata, Jnatru, we say. So they have an attributive knowledge, as well as substance is also made of consciousness. And Jnana is always, it has three parts: the object of knowledge, the knower of knowledge, and the knowledge itself about the object. These three are always there with respect to knowledge. So a undifferentiated knowledge cannot exist. Knowledge has to reside in a knower, and it is about an object. So this is also very important. These are some basic concepts. And for studying all the Vedanta, the Vedas and Upanishads and all that, we need to understand the meanings of the words, and then we need proper reasoning, and also we need to analyze sentences, which is a group of words giving a proper meaning. So all these things are required for us to understand the teachings of the Upanishads and the Vedas. So there are many works which are there, which help us in understanding these. These works have been written by various rishis, and they explain us, they help us in understanding the meanings of the Vedas and Upanishads and all that. And Veda, and they being the ultimate valid testimony for understanding things that are supersensory, which we cannot perceive directly here. we need to also support the Vedic understanding with proper reasoning to establish the meanings firmly in our minds. We need proper reasoning also. So that reasoning has to be always in line with what is taught in the Vedas. It should not be independent or against something that is not taught in the Vedas. So that is something which is very important. Shruti matas tarko anusandhiyatam. Even Shankaracharya says, Shruti mataha tarkaha anusandhiyatam. Tarka, which is in accordance with the purport of the Shrutis, has to be followed, has to be used properly. So we need the grammar which helps us to understand the nature of the words, derivation of the words, and through that we understand the meanings of the words. Many times the word's meaning itself will not help us. So we need to also have the knowledge of how to analyze a sentence in totality, a group of words. The Mimamsakas help us in that. They have arrived at ways in which we can analyze sentences. And the Nayayikas, the logicians, have helped us in conveying meaning in a proper structured way called Anumana, where with few words we can convey a lot of meaning and with proper reasoning. So these are all essential for us to understand. These are all the tools required, the accessories to understand the meanings of the Vedas. And there are some, Jaimini has defined certain rules called Nyaya. Each sutra is a rule only. Each sutra is a Nyaya. That is why they are called Nyaya Sutras. They are all in the form of the Anumana structure propounded by the logicians, Nayayikas. So some things like Samanya Vishesha Nyaya. There are many general terms which culminate in a specific term. This is one Nyaya. These are used in the Vedas to understand because the Vedas are unquestionable evidence. We cannot question because it is Apaurusheya. So we need to understand without contradiction meanings of the Vedic words and sentences. For that, these rules are very essential. And Utsarga Apavada Nyaya, there seems to be apparent contradiction in the Vedic sentences many places. Then we have to understand how to actually interpret these sentences without any contradiction, because Vedas do not have any contradiction. So there are some exemptions to rules, general rules. That also we have to understand which is an exemption, which is a general rule, all those things. Like for example, one place the Veda says that one should not injure anybody. Whereas all the Vedic injunctions say that you have to offer pashus as havis in the yagas. Is it not injury? Are we not causing injury to the animals? And all these questions will come. Of course, at a later stage, all these have changed. But there are substitutes for all that. But even then, the Vedic sentences give such instructions. So that is taken as an exemption because the Veda itself is telling like that. So there are general rules and exemptions for that. Like that, there are many things that are found in Vedas. And another rule important is Sarvashakha Pratyaya Nyaya. We have to understand the meanings of the sentences considering similar instances in all the Upanishads and Vedas. So there are many Upanishads. Each one will teach us many aspects. The nature of the Jivatman itself, for example. In one Upanishad, it could be something. Another Upanishad, it could be meaning as though it is contradicting. So we have to understand without any contradiction. Some places it may say it is only consciousness. Some places it may say he is a knower. So do we understand he is only consciousness or he also has quality of knowership? So what does it mean when it says only consciousness? Means it is talking about the substantial nature. It is not talking about the attributes there. So you have to resolve the mutual apparent contradictions like that. That is called Sarvashakha Pratyaya Nyaya. Pratyaya means jnana, knowledge. What you understand from the various Upanishads and all the Vedas, you have to resolve without any contradiction. So this is a very important general rule that is especially followed very carefully in the Vishistadvaitic system. We give importance to all the Vedic sentences without any exemption. That means we don't give secondary importance to some, primary importance to some, like that. Wherever possible, primary importance has to be given. The meanings of the sentences have to be taken in the primary sense, wherever possible. So that is something which is followed very strictly in this system of interpretation. So that is called Sarvashakha Pratyaya Nyaya. So these are some things which we need to keep in mind to understand the interpretations and how the metaphysics is defined in this system of philosophy. So in some general aspects of Vishistadvaita, it is one among the Vedanta darshanas. It is based on Prasthana Traya. That is the three basic sources of knowledge: Shruti, Smriti, and Sutras. Shruti is nothing but Vedas. Smriti is something which explains in detail the meanings of the Vedas. And Sutras are also, in a way, like a commentary of the Shruti. But they are not a detailed commentary explaining every sentence of the Veda or Upanishad. Sutras are mainly focused on resolving contradictions and establishing a proper, structured way of understanding the teachings of the Upanishads and the Vedas. So that is how Veda Sutras are very important. And in the Vedanta systems, the Brahma Sutras, which are the sutras written by Badarayana or Vyasa, Krishnadvaipayana for the Upanishads, are the very important authority, one of the important authorities for all the systems of Vedanta. They all accept Dvaita, Advaita, Vishistadvaita, all of them accept the Brahma Sutras fully as valid. And based on the Upanishads, it is accepted that there are three realities. This is, now we are talking about Vishistadvaita in particular. So in Vishistadvaita, three realities are accepted. One is called Chit, which means the sentient being, the knower, the consciousness. His nature is of consciousness. He is a spiritual entity. And Achita means it's an inert substance. And then doesn't have knowledge. Achita doesn't have knowledge. Since it is inert, it cannot act by itself. So it is meant for the purpose of the Chit, the Chetana, the sentient being. So the inert substances are meant for the use of the sentient being, because inert substance cannot act by itself. It is without knowledge. It cannot know itself. And Ishvara Parabrahman is the ultimate ruler, Sarveshwara, who supports the Chita and Achit substances, and he is the controller, the supreme controller, the supreme support, and the supreme master of everything else. So these are three independent realities which are established based on the Upanishads in this system of Vedanta. Chita, Achita are also realities, and realities in the sense they are real substances and are inseparably associated with Ishvara in all states and at all times. So they do not have independent existence at any time. The nature of the reality is such that the sentient beings and the inert substances do not have independent existence at all at any point of time. So there is nothing which is not supported by Brahman, which is not controlled by Brahman, or which is not subservient to Brahman. So these three relations of the two substances with Brahman is unquestionably established in the Upanishads. So that is something, this is actually called the Shariratma Bhava. We will come to that later. So Brahman, qualified by the Chit and Achit, is accepted as the only reality. So if you say Advaita is also a word found in our Vishistadvaita. So it is not pure Advaita, it is Vishishta Advaita, qualified non-dualism. It is not just Advaita alone. It is a qualified Advaita. Qualified means what? Means it has got these attributes. So qualification means there are various attributes of the substance. So Brahman has his own attributes, like his own qualities and his own substantive nature and all that. In addition to that, he is qualified by the sentient and the non-sentient entities, which are always associated with Brahman inseparably. So if you see, the qualified object is one. Qualified object is only one. That is called Vishishta Advaita. Because you cannot separate out the Chiti and Achiti from Brahman. They all exist together as one entity all the time. So that is the reason why it is called Vishishta Advaita. And the Brahman established in Upanishads is none other than Sriman Narayana or Sri Vishnu only. So this is very clearly established also. The specific deity who is told as Parabrahman in the Upanishads also has to be established. General Brahman is a general term, which says that Brahman means it is substance which is huge, Brihat. Brihat, so means which is a huge substance, big substance. That's what is the meaning of Brahman. But which is that substance? There is a specific deity who is known as Parabrahman in the Upanishads. It is Sriman Narayana. So that is what is established. These are all supported by, of course, Shruti Pramana only. The fact that Sriman Narayana is Parabrahman is established based on several Pramanas. Primarily the Purusha Sukta, which says Purusha is the word used for Sriman Narayana. Vishnu Sukta, which very clearly tells Vishnu. Mudakopanishad also, Atharvashikopanishad, Kathopanishad, Maitri Upanishad, Mahanarayani Upanishad. All these are clearly telling names of Vishnu, Narayana and all that as the supreme deity. So that is, this is established by primarily using these Upanishadic statements by our Acharyas. And Pancharatra Agamas are also Pramanas. Pancharatra Agamas are taught directly by Sriman Narayana only. Pancharatrasya Swayam Vakta Pancharatrasya Swayam, we say. He, Narayana himself, has taught these Pancharatra Agamas. There are many works related to Pancharatra Agamas, like Lakshmi Tantra and all those things. They all establish also the supremacy of Sriman Narayana as the super self of the whole world. And Sri Vishnu Purana is another very important Smriti Pramana. Mahabharata, and in Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita especially, where it is very clearly told by Sri Krishna himself, who himself is the Supreme Lord. And Srimad Ramayana, all these things are Srimad Bhagavata, they all establish this very clearly. In the Brahma Sutras especially, Vishnu Purana and Bhagavad Gita are referred to by Badarayana in many of his sutras. That is also according to all our acharyas, that they pick udaharanes, that is the examples from Vishnu Purana and Bhagavad Gita. Wherever in the sutra Badarayana mentions the word smriti, so they generally take it as to mean Vishnu Purana or Bhagavad Gita, like that. So those are given prime importance by all the acharyas. And the nature of Ishvara found in all these works is as established in the Vishistadvaita Darshana. That is, it has proper Vedic support. So the validity is established unquestionably based on the Vedic sentences. And Bhagavad Ramanuja re-established this system in totality. It is found in the Upanishad itself, in the Shruti itself, in the Veda itself it is there. Vishistadvaita system is there in the Veda itself. No need to, he didn't see anything, he didn't find anything new. He did not establish anything new, or he did not create something new concept. No. He has only given a proper shape to what is already taught in the Shrutis and which was taught in by our Purvacharyas, earlier preceptors, who have written various works, and some of them were available to Bhagavad Ramanuja during his time, 1,000 years ago. And then he has made use of those works and he has given a proper shape. So there was no complete commentary on the Brahma Sutras in accordance with the Vishishtadvaitic system of Vedanta. So that is a very great contribution of Bhagavad Ramanuja, that he wrote a commentary, not one, but he wrote 3 commentaries for the Brahma Sutras. That also shows how our Acharyas were very, very far-sighted, because they know in these times we don't have time. We have impatience, lot of impatience. We don't have patience. So Ramanuja has written 3 commentaries on the Brahma Sutras. One is very short. It is called Vedanta Sara. Very short. Just the Siddhanta alone it says. What is the meaning of the sutra according to our Siddhanta? Another one is Vedanta Deepa, where there is the prima facie view. Purva Paksha is stated very briefly in few sentences. Siddhanta in few sentences. So it is little bit expanded. We also understand what other view is there in that particular sutra, what are the other views available and how our views are established. And the third work which he wrote is Sri Bhashya, which is in great detail, and he explained everything in great detail in that. For people who want to study thoroughly and understand, Sri Bhashya Bhagavad Ramanuja is the basic source for all Acharyas after Ramanuja, for further establishing and expanding, and in various ways further many commentaries came on that and things like that. So Sri Bhashya is a very, very fundamental work, and that itself is based on, of course, his Acharya, his Pracharya, in fact Yamunacharya's works. So Ramanuja has re-established, we can say. He did not create Vishistadvaita newly. In fact, he has never used the word Vishishtadvaita in any of his commentaries, which is a very interesting point to note. He never uses the word Vishishtadvaita. The first time we find the use of a word Vishishtadvaita is in Sudarshana Suri's commentary on Sri Bhashya. Sudarshana Suri has written a commentary on Sri Bhashya, which is called Shruta Prakashika. It is also what he heard from his Acharya in his classes, and we understood, and he has made notes of all the teachings of his Acharya, and he has collected and he published it as Shruta Prakashika. What I've heard, I am publishing it, he says. Shruta Prakashika. I am bringing it to everybody's notice, what I heard in my classes, he says. So that commentary is where, and there is another commentary on the first work of Ramanuja called Vedartha Sangraha. In that Vedartha Sangraha, for the first time, and Sudarshana Suri wrote a commentary for the first work of Ramanuja, which is Vedartha Sangraha. And that is where he first uses the word Vishishtadvaita. That is the first time we find the use of the word Vishishtadvaita itself. So the concept has been there forever in the Vedas, but Ramanuja established thoroughly this system in totality because he wrote commentaries for the Prasthanatrayas and then established it in totality. And he also utilized the Divya Prabandhas written in Tamil by Tamil Nadu saints known as Alvars. This is also a very, very important, valid testimony for us in our Sampradaya, in the Vishishtadvaitic Sampradaya. This is a very, very important. That is, Sampradaya is that which has come from Acharya Shishya Parampare, from time immemorial. So, Divya Prabandhas are there are 4,000 poems in Tamil called Pashurams of various Alvars known as Divya Prabandhas. And what are these Pashuras? Did the Alvars write these Pashuras to teach? No, they enjoyed direct perception of Brahman. And these poems are nothing but outpourings of extraordinary experience out of their extreme devotion. They are just the outpourings. They enjoyed it so much, Paramatman. Directly they enjoyed the Supreme Lord and all his divine acts in various avatars and all that, incarnations, that and manifestations of the Lord, like Krishna, Rama, and all that. They enjoyed it so much directly. They perceived the Supreme directly, like rishis, and out of their divine experience and the extreme devotion, it just poured out in the form of prose, in the form of poems called Pashurams. So they are just praising the Lord, how they saw, how they experienced. So these are all very taken as very important pramana in the Vishistadvaitic system. So it is, they have given they are called the Dravida Veda, and we have the Samskrita Veda and Dravida Veda. Both are there. So both put together, it is called Ubhaya Vedanta. The Vishistadvaitic system is known as Ubhaya Vedanta. Both are important for us equally. And Ramanuja has used the Alvar's works, is very clear in his works like Sri Bhashya and all that, where many of the explanations that they gives is directly seen in Alvar's Pashurams, their poems. So that is something which is very important for us to understand also. And hence the word Vishistadvaita signifies the reality of Brahman, which is one and non-second, and having inseparable attributes qualifying it. So this is a important aspect. So everything is in Brahman. Everything is supported by Brahman. Everything is controlled by Brahman. So there are many things and all are true. All are real, but all exist as one entity. That is the Supreme Brahman. And the reality of the jivas and matter is affirmed here. They are both real substances, very distinct and different from each other. The three realities of Parabrahman and Jivatmas and the Achit Tattva, that is the inert matter, all three are very, very different and distinct, but inseparably associated. It is something like, if you see, our body itself, when we see our body, what happens is we have the sentient being inside. Just 1 minute, somebody has, let me clear the annotation. Somebody has created some annotations. Okay. So now I have disabled the annotation. Okay. So the reality is one only, qualified by the order of the sentient and the non-sentient. That is something which is fundamental to Vishistadvaita. So they do not have independent existence apart from the Brahman and are inseparably associated. So it is unity of reality. Unity of reality. And Brahman is never undifferentiated consciousness. So in this system, it is very well established that there cannot be a substance without any attributes. Any substance has to be known only through its attributes. You cannot have a substance with no attributes at all. So nirguna padartha cannot exist. Everything is saguna only. That is what is established here. So it is Savishesha Advaita. So another name given for Vishishta Advaita. Savishesha Advaita. Vishesha means qualities, attributes. So this is Advaita with attributes, Saguna Brahma. And Sentient beings are also having qualities. Inert matter also has qualities. Everything is Vishishta only. So the unity of reality is what is established here. Brahman is never undifferentiated. It is necessarily qualified by innumerable auspicious attributes. And it is like a fruit, just an example, which is one but is characterized by color, shape, taste, and all those things. So that is like that. We say a mango. The skin is very different. The inside portion is different. There is a seed inside. They are all of different nature, but all put together we say mango. One word is used. It is a qualified substance which is one. So Ramanujacharya's contribution in terms of detailed commentary on Brahma Sutras led to this system being known as Ramanuja Darshana. It became famous as Ramanuja Darshana itself because he established it in totality by writing various commentaries. And he explained the principle of body and soul. That is very, very fundamental. Sharira Shariri Bhava, it is called, or Sharira Atma Bhava. Sharira Atma Bhava. That is the body-soul relationship between Brahman and everything else. It is the master key for solving all apparent contradictions in the scriptures. So the scriptures seem to have a lot of apparent contradictions. This body-soul relationship that is established very firmly by our Purvacharyas also, but Ramanuja has established in great detail with lot of pramanas and with supported by Shruti, Smriti, Brahma Sutra and everything. And then that is how all the apparent contradictions are removed or solved or explained properly, giving primary sense to everything. So established that Ramanujacharya established that reality is one and non-second. Brahman is qualified by the orders of sentient and non-sentient. The principle of Samanadhikaranya is another important thing that Ramanuja has contributed. This is again based on the grammarians, what they have already written. Kayata is a grammarian who has written a work on grammar. There whatever he defines as the definition of Samanadhikaranya, concomitant coordination. The coordination, we'll come to that later when we take a little more detail. And this was explained and maintained by Ramanuja, by which he could establish various aspects where multiple attributes can qualify a single object. That is coordination. Multiple attributes which are not opposed to each other can qualify a single object. So to tell you very briefly, normally an attribute of a substance differentiates that substance from other substances. If I say a white cloth, whiteness is the attribute, the quality of the cloth, color of the cloth. That white cloth, the whiteness separates it from black cloth or red cloth or yellow cloth, etc. So the attribute has the nature of distinguishing that object from other objects. This is a general nature of the attribute. So if there are 2-3 attributes for a substance, will that mean they have to be 3 substances? Or one substance can have 3 attributes? Because attributes generally differentiate it from other. So if there are 3 attributes, should there be 3 substances? Like white, black and yellow cloth, if I say. White cloth has to be different, yellow cloth has to be different, black cloth has to be different. All 3 cannot exist together in one. So these are basically contradicting attributes, but there can be non-contradicting attributes. For example, a white cloth can have a shape. A shirt, if I say, with sleeves or without sleeves. And that can be a white cloth with sleeves, a cloth. So it has got 2 attributes qualifying only one object. So this is called coordination, concomitant coordination. There are in the Vedic sentence analysis, These are all becoming very important because there are many Vedic sentences where multiple attributes are told for a particular object. Whether these attributes are talking about multiple objects or they all qualifying a single object, these are all very important for us to analyze and understand the meanings of Vedic sentences. So this is called Samanadhikaranya, concept of coordination, concomitant coordination. This we will come to it later when we talk about specific Vedic statements like Tattvamasi, etc. So using this, all these, Ramanuja has established the meanings of these Vedic sentences very, very carefully and without any contradiction. He has established the meanings of the Vedic sentences. That is a very significant contribution of Bhagavad Ramanujacharya. And he also explained different kinds of, I hope the screens are all seen properly. Yeah, Ramanuja also explained different kinds of Shruti Vakyas. So there are different types of sentences in Shruti. Some of them are telling that the Chit, Achit, the sentient being, inert matter, and Ishvara, they are all different and distinct. Some statements say they are all one only. Everything is only Brahman. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, like that there are some statements. It looks like apparent. What we seem to understand from that, if we just see, is that everything is Brahman, means there is only one entity, nothing else is the mean. But there are some statements which say three different distinct objects are there. And then there are some which say everything is Sharira of Brahman. Sharira word itself is used. And in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So there are many such, some sentences say only the substantive part of the object. Some of them explain only the attributes. Things like that. There are so many different kinds of statements found in the Vedas and the Upanishads that it is very, very important for us to understand without any contradiction. With the help of Sharira Shariri Bhava, that is body-soul relationship, and Samanadhikaranya, and all this, Ramanuja established, giving primary sense to all these different types of sentences in the Veda, everything without any contradiction properly. So that is a very wonderful, unique contribution of Ramanuja. He explained that there is difference between Atman and Atman. Everybody has an independent individual self who is different than the self in another body. So it is not the one self in all bodies. Each body has a separate individual self. So Atman and Atman are different because their experiences are different. My experience of happiness or sadness, etc., is different from somebody else's experience. So it is not the same individual self, Jivatman, who is there in all bodies. Each body has a different Jivatman. So there is difference. Though they are all of the same nature, Atman, Jivatman, all can be of the nature of consciousness. So the Jivatma in my body or another person's body or another animal's body, all are of the nature of consciousness, but they are different. Each one is a different entity. They are all called Jivatmas only, of the same similar nature, not identity, it is similarity, similar nature. And Paramatman is different from Jivatman. Paramatman is different and distinct from Jivatman. These are all established based on Shruti Pramanas. And he also established a unique contribution is that Bhakti and Prapatti both are direct means to liberation. So this is a very, very unique contribution of Ramanuja, which helps in, without that also it has been established by our other acharyas in great detail later, that there is no discrimination of caste, creed, gender, etc. for Prapatti, which is called absolute self-surrender, absolute surrender to the Lord. And this Prapatti concept is used by everybody, including Bauddhas. In the Bauddha Darshana also, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Sharanam is Sharanagati. That is Prapatti only. That is surrender, absolute surrender. That is concept of surrender is used by every In every darshana it is used. But none of them said that it can be a direct means to liberation. They said it is an accessory to something else. So if I want to get some work done by somebody, if I surrender unto him and say, you only are the means, you only have to give me this, only you can only do this. I am surrendering myself, I have no powers, I have no other person whom I can go and request, please help me. I request him, then he will do it. So he will only has to give me that power. So this surrendering is something concept which is used for various things. And in the Shastra it is used in the Bhagavad Gita and all that, for example. They are used as to remove obstacles for starting of the Karma Yoga or starting of the Bhakti Yoga. Every work that we do has obstacles. Even in our daily life, we can see whatever we want to do, there are obstacles to that. It is not easy for us to do everything as we wish. It doesn't happen. A lot of obstacles keep coming. So we have to pray to the Lord to remove those obstacles so that we can do the work. So that praying to the Lord is nothing but prapatti, saranagati. That is Arjuna did. He said he was totally confused whether he has to wage the war or not. So he surrendered to Krishna and said, you only have to say me, tell me what I should do. So the prapatti he did was to get the right knowledge so that he can take a decision whether he has to wage the war or not. Prapatti was to get the right knowledge only. And the same prapatti can be used for liberation also. The ultimate, as the ultimate means for emancipation. And that kind of prapatti is without it doesn't have any condition, unconditional surrender. It doesn't discrimination of caste or creed or gender, knowledge, nothing. Anybody can do that. This is a most wonderful contribution of Ramanuja to the entire humanity. It opens the gates of emancipation for entire humanity without any discrimination. Anybody can do this. So this is something which is extremely important for us to know. That is a unique contribution of Ramanuja. And this is also there in the Shruti. It is not that he created it something newly. It is there in the Upanishads itself. Upanishad itself talks about this. So Sarvasya Sharanam Suhrit is Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Narayan Mahanarayana Upanishad. Many of the Upanishads talk about this as surrender, self-surrender or Sharanagati is direct means to liberation. It is told in Upanishads itself. But he established it and he practiced it also. And further later Acharyas established it in great detail, properly. So this is a very unique contribution of the Vishistadvaitic system to the entire world, we can say. And now we will just go about the evolution of the Vishistadvaitic system, the Acharyas who propagated the system. Many Acharyas have propagated. The Sri Bhagavad Ramanujacharya used the word of Bodhayana. He had written a work called Vritti, Brahma Sutra Vritti. It is like a commentary on the Brahma Sutras, which was very, very huge. And when he went to Kashmir, it is found in history, we can see that he was given that work. It was available only in Kashmir. And then he was given the work only one day to give and study and return back, because they used to preserve those works very carefully. And Ramanuja used to have 75 saints following him wherever he went. And one of his most devoted devotees, Kuratalwan, he had wonderful memory. And so there are two theories. One is that Kuratalwan himself memorized everything in one night. Another thing is they distributed among all the saints and then who were followers of Ramanuja, and they all studied it. And later on, Ramanuja, with the help of all that, he wrote a complete commentary for the Brahma Sutras, most wonderful commentary called Sri Bhashya. So Bodhayana Vritti is one of the most important. Bodhayana was Acharya who wrote this. Tankacharya is another Acharya. He wrote a commentary on the Chandogya Upanishad called Vakya, which is not available to us now. This Bodhayana Vritti is also not available. Vakya of Tankacharya or Brahmanandi is another name for him. That is also not available. But they are mentioned by Bhagavad Ramanuja, and some of them are mentioned by even Vedanta Deshika. Dravidacharya is another Acharya who wrote a commentary on Tankacharya's work. Natha Muni, he was a great yogi, and he wrote works called Nyaya Tattva, Mahapurush Purusha Nirnaya, and Yoga Rahasya. None of these are available today. So these are all, he was a great yogi, Natha Muni, but he taught it to his disciples, and through that it came to Yamunacharya and then to Bhagavad Ramanujacharya. Yamunacharya wrote most wonderful works called Agama Pramanya, Mahapurusha Nirnaya, Atma Siddhi, Ishvara Siddhi, Samvit Siddhi. They are called Siddhitraya. And Gita Artha Sangraha, Chatushloki, Stotra Ratna. These are some of the prominent works of Yamunacharya. And the history tells us that Yamunacharya and Ramanuja never met each other, though Ramanacharya saw Ramanuja, and by the time Ramanujacharya went to see him, he had already left the mortal remains. And so, but he had the grace of the Acharya, and he is Paramacharya. Ramanacharya's Shishyas, they taught Ramanuja basically later on. But Ramanuja's work of Sribhashya is primarily based on the Siddhitraya, Atma Siddhi, Ishvara Siddhi, and Samvit Siddhi. And Ramanujacharya has very closely followed his Bhagavad Gita Bhashya, and he has followed Gita Artha Sangraha of Bhagavad Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya wrote 32 shlokas, that's all, Gita Artha Sangraha, which summarizes the entire meaning of the Bhagavad Gita most wonderfully. And Ramanujacharya took that and then expanded in great detail, most wonderful way, which is Bhagavad Gita Bhashya. So all these works are used by Ramanujacharya very closely, and he has followed the Acharyas. He also mentions in all his works, I am not writing anything myself, anything new. I am just restating, or I am just expanding what our Acharyas have written already. He makes this very explicitly clear in all his works. That is a very unique aspect of Bhagavad Ramanujacharya's commentaries. Ramanuja wrote 9 works. The 9 gems they are called. Vedartha Sangraha is supposed to be his first work, which is his commentary on the Shruti Prasthana. He didn't write a detailed commentary for the Upanishads or the Vedas, but he picked the most important statements which are discussed by other Darshanikas, other Vedantins, and then he established the meanings of those Vedic sentences. Through that, he has established a proper system of Vishistadvaita as found in the Shrutis. So this is Vedartha Sangraha. The meaning, the name itself is also very significant. For Vishistadvaita, Veda is one unit. So it is not that Brahmana is different, Upanishad is different, Samhita is different, like that. They teach us different aspects, but they are all together one unit only. So it is not Vedantartha Sangraha, it is Vedartha Sangraha. It's not simply Vedanta, but Vedartha Sangraha, entire Vedas. And he also uses many pramanas from the Purva Kanda of the Vedas and all that. He uses Jaimini's Sutras, he uses Badrayana Sutras and all those things to establish the meanings of the most important Shruti statements and establishes his system of Vishistadvaita in totality in Vedartha Sangraha, all aspects of the, and it's a very wonderful work. It is supposed to be a lecture given by Bhagavad Ramanujacharya in front of Srinivasa in Tirumala. And for 3 days he gave lectures, and Sudarshana and his disciple has noted down and passed on later on, and Sudarshana Suri has written a commentary on that. Sudarshana Suri was in much later time compared to Ramanujacharya, but it was passed on through his disciples, and then Sudarshana Suri has written a wonderful commentary called Tatparya Deepika for that, which explains the inner meanings of the Vedanta Sangraha. Sri Bhashya and Vedanta Deepa and Vedanta Sara are commentaries on the Brahma Sutras, and three levels for three different kinds of students. Somebody who wants to have a quick glance of Vishistadvaita and study it in short time and understand Vishistadvaita based on the Brahma Sutras, they can take Vedanta Sara. Somebody says, I have little more time. I also want to study the prima facie view for each sutra and then understand. They can pick Vedanta Deepa. If somebody wants to thoroughly go into a deep dive into the Vishistadvaita system, they can study Sri Bhashya. It's a very elaborate work, a monumental work of Ramanuja. And then Gita Bhashya is a wonderful commentary on Bhagavad Gita, where it is Ramanuja's outpourings of devotion are most wonderfully seen, and all his experiences he puts in words in a most wonderful way. Gita Bhashya, Gita Bhashya of Ramanuja is appreciated by everyone without any distinction. So all of them appreciate the way Bhagavad Ramanuja has written the Gita Bhashya. Most enjoyable work. And then the Gadya Traya, so it's got three, Sharanagati Gadya, Sriranga Gadya and Vaikuntha Gadya, where he actually practices. It is supposed to be a dialogue between Ramanuja and Ranganatha in presence of Ranganatha and Ranganayaki Tayar, his consort. And it is about Sharanagati, how he did Sharanagati, self-surrender, absolute surrender. And then he also tells others to do Sharanagati, because there is no other way for others in this time where we are not able to do Bhakti Yoga. We can't do even Karma Yoga for a single day or 1 hour. We cannot do Karma Yoga. So we who don't have the capacity, the knowledge, the power, or the what is required, the prana and all those things for practicing Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, it is unimaginable for anybody in these times. For them, Sharanagati is the only way to liberate themselves from the samsara. He teaches that in Gadyatraya. And then there are commentaries for the Gadyatraya by Vedanta Deshika and all that. And the Nitya Grantha is actually how we have to worship the Lord every day. That is, in all his other works, Vedanta Sangraha, Sri Bhashya, and all these Gita Bhashya, he established the nature of realities in totality, based on the Prasthana, Shruti, Smriti, and all those things. And then, what is the use of all this knowledge? We have to put it to practice. Then only knowledge is useful. If it simply remains in the textbook or in our mind, it's of no use. We have to put it to practice. How to put it to practice? Nitya Grantha tells us how should one spend his day? How should one worship the Lord with all this knowledge? So that is Nitya Grantha, which is the most wonderful work. So these are the great contributions of Ramanuja. And then Srivatsanka Mishra is Kuratalvan. His another name is Kuratalvan. He wrote Panchastava, which is a wonderful stotras. And then there are 5 stavas in that. Sri Stava, Vardaraja Stava, Atimanuja Stava, and all that. And then Parashara Bhatta was a very, very, very renowned scholar and devotee, and who wrote some wonderful works. He wrote a commentary on the Sahasranama, Vishnu Sahasranama, called Bhagavad Guna Adarsha. And then Bhagavad Guna Darpana, it's called. And Sri Rangaraja Stava, and then Sri Gunaratna Kosha, Ashtashloki, all wonderful works, where he also establishes the Vishistadvaitic system of knowledge in great detail. And then Sri Vishnu Chitta, who is also a commentator of the Vishnu Purana. Vishnu Chittiya, it's called, commentary on the Vishnu Purana. And then Prameya Sangraha Sangatimala, some of his works. And Vatsya Varadacharya, who was a direct disciple of Vishnu Chitta, who is also called and known as Nadadu Ramad. And he wrote Prameya Sara, Prameya Mala, Jnana Sara, Prapanna Parijata, Tattva Sara, and all that. So Vatsya Varadacharya had great disciples. Sudarshana Suri and Atreya Ramanuja were among them. And Sudarshana Suri wrote the commentary Shruta Prakashika and also Tatparya Deepika for Vedartha Sangraha. And he has written an independent commentary of Brahma Sutras also. So those are all his contributions. And and then Atreya Ramanuja and Sudarshana Suri were classmates studying under Vatsya Varadacharya in Kanchipuram. And he has written a wonderful work called Nyaya Kulisha. Atreya Ramanuja is the teacher of Acharyan of Vedanta Deshika. He taught him all the works, and through him only Vedanta Deshika got all his knowledge. So he wrote wonderful works. Vedanta Deshika is a very, very significant Acharya. He has contributed most wonderfully to the development and establishment of the Vishistadvaitic system. He wrote more than 100 works. So among them, there are different types of works he has wrote. Tattvatika is a commentary on the Sri Bhashya itself, but it's not available in full. And Tattvamukta Kalapa, there is nothing which is not there in Tattvamukta Kalapa. Every other philosopher also studies Tattvamukta Kalapa. It is important to study this for every philosopher, irrespective of whether Dvaita, Vedanta, Vishistadvaita or Advaita. Everyone studies this work, Tattvamukta Kalapa. Such a wonderful work. Tatparya Chandrika, commentary on the Gita Bhashya of Ramanuja, Nyaya Siddhanjana and Nyaya Parishuddhi, which are commentaries on the Nyaya Sutras, more like establishing it in line with Brahma Sutras, Gautama, and then Nikshepa Raksha, which is about absolute surrender or Sharanagati or Prapatti, Pancharatra Raksha, Shatadushani, Seshwara Mimamsa, Yadavabhyudaya, and Sankalpa Suryodaya, Stotras, Rahasya Granthas, Paduka Sahasra, and so many hundreds of works he has written. And he has systematized knowledge in such a wonderful way. Knowledge management he has done most wonderfully. Rahasya Granthas especially, he gives a step-by-step approach for understanding all the important aspects of Vishistadvaita and of the purport of the Shrutis thoroughly. He gives a very, very step-by-step, wonderful approach, step-by-step, for us to understand. So his works are most important to understand our Siddhanta. Pillai Lokacharya, then Mumukshupadi, Srivachana Bhujanam, Prapanna Parijata, Navaratnamalai. These are all significant Acharyas. Varavara Muni, Manavalama Muni, Etiraja Vimshati is a wonderful stotra containing 20 slokas on Bhagavad Ramanuja. Upadesha Ratnamalai, commentaries for Mumukshupadi of Pillai Lokacharya, Srivachana Bhushanam, Ramanujanuttandadi. He has written a commentary for that also. So these are all very important works we have to study. Mahacharya, who has written a commentary on Shatadushani, the wonderful work of Deshika, and Rangaramanuja Muni, he is the one who has actually written complete commentaries for the 10 Upanishads. He is called the Dasha Upanishad Bhashyakara. He is called. So Ramanuja did not write a complete commentary for the Upanishads, but based on the works of Ramanuja, Vedanta Deshika and all our Acharyas, Rangaramanuja Muni, who lived sometime around the 16th, 17th century in Kanchipuram, he wrote a complete commentaries for the 10 Upanishads. So the commentaries are available as today completely for all the Upanishads. And Vedanta Deshika also wrote for Ishavasya Upanishad and all some of the commentaries. He himself has written completely. And then Srinivasa was an Acharya who has written a work called Yatindra Matadipika, which is more like establishing the metaphysics and the prameyas of our Siddhanta using the Lakshana Grantha. It is like Tarka Sangraha and all these works written by logicians, Nayayikas. It is a similar work which establishes the metaphysics of Vishistadvaita with proper definitions as per the Nyaya Siddhanta and all that. So these are some of the very significant works of our Acharyas and how our Acharyas have developed and established the system the most wonderful way that we just had a brief look today. There are hundreds of works. Most of them are in Sanskrit. Many of them are in Tamil mixed with Sanskrit, called Mani Pravada. So the Rasya Granthas or Mumukshupadi, these are all like works which are Tamil and Sanskrit mix works. It's called Mani Pravada. And many of them are in Sanskrit itself. So we have to understand the original works, and there are many commentaries written further explaining all that. And the later acharyas like Uttamurvi Raghvacharya and all, many of them have given significant contributions they have done, writing further commentaries, making it easy for us to understand the inner meanings, the deep meanings of all these works of the acharyas. So this is how, and then we will now go to valid means of knowledge in Vishistadvaita especially. So with respect to Vishistadvaita, now we will go to Pramanas in Vishistadvaita. And with that, I conclude today's session and then leave the class open for any questions. 1 minute. Participants. Leave the class open for any questions.
Namaste, sir. You've been using Prapatti and Sharanagati as interchangeable words, but is there a minute nuance between the meaning of these two?
No, they are both same. They are both synonyms, basically. Atma Nikshepa, Sharanagati, Prapatti, they are all same meaning, no difference.
Swami, how individual souls are created?
How?
Individual souls are created. How individual souls were created?
Which source, individual source in the main? The Vedas and all that? What do you mean by individual sources?
He's
Like
asking souls, I think soul, right?
Bhava, you explained Sorry Bhava.
Yeah.
According to Vishistadvaita philosophy. So how
They are
individual souls
all written, explained based on the Shruti Pramana, basically. And the Smritis also. Shruti, Smriti and Sutra Pramanas. So we will see how it is done later when we go into more detail. Those who are not asking questions, kindly mute yourself.
Adiyan Swami, this is Venkataraman.
Tell me.
Sorry. So one my basic question is like all the three major philosophers established the Vishistadvaita, Advaita, and Dvaita based on the same Vedas and especially the 10 to 12 Upanishads. Why there is such a
Some people are not muting themselves and talking in the background. Please don't do that.
Yes, Swami. Why there is such a contradictory statements by each?
That is because the Vedic words and sentences. See, in Sanskrit itself, words have got multiple meanings. Okay. Every word has got multiple meanings. So, which meaning to take in which context is again based on individual's discretion. So if I am writing a system, I can decide based on my own experience and understanding. The meaning of this word has to be like this. Okay. So the three great acharyas basically written commentaries. Please not muting yourselves. So basically, the three great acharyas what they have done is based on their own experience and understanding at that time. And they also had a purpose, for example, like that. So, and based on that, they have interpreted the meanings of the Upanishadic sentences and established their system. So there are differences in that because the Vedic sentences are very difficult to explain. Some of them gave importance only to the statements which talk about Advaita. Some gave importance to only Dvaita, and others, other sentences are taken in secondary sense, like that. It is their discretion, their experience. We cannot question that. So they established the system like that. But what Ramanuja has done is he has given equal importance to all, and he has tried to resolve the apparent contradiction in a proper way, that too based on the Shruti Pramana itself. The meaning depends on how you give meaning to the. For example, the word Sharira is used in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So Ramanuja takes this as Sharira. Definition of Sharira has to be complete. Sharira is not having, hand and face and eyes and nose and all that. This is not the definition of body. Because if you say this is the definition of body, Upanishad says, Prithvi, yasya Prithvi Shariram, it says. The whole world is Sharira, Upanishad says. The world doesn't have face and eyes and nose and all those things. So definition of Sharira doesn't match there. When you give a definition of a substance, it has to be applicable to all instances where that word is used. So wherever Sharira is used, the definition should hold good. That is the kind of definition you have to give when you define a substance or something like that. So, for example, Madhvacharya says Sharira as dependent, utterly dependent. Paratantra, it says, he says. And Ramanuja gives a different interpretation for Sharira. So, like that, it depends on their experience and how they have viewed their system, how they have understood the purport of the Vedas. And primarily, three views have emerged, not more than three. All of them, others are all kind of a mix of all these only.
Swami, will you explain the process of creation of soul in another class?
Process of liberation.
No, process of the creation of soul in another class.
Creation, is it?
Means creation of soul, the process of creation of soul.
Yeah, all that will come. Creation, all that will come in later classes.
Okay, Swami.
Yeah.
Yes, Narayan.
Thank you so much for your class. You explained that Ramanujacharya didn't comment, and that Ramanujacharya didn't comment on all the Upanishad, but later acharyas like Ranga
Ramanuja.
he commented on all the 10 Upanishads. So when he comments on the same Upanishad as Ramanuja Acharya did, is he repeating his commentary, or is he giving a new commentary, or is he commenting Ramanuja Acharya's commentary?
He quotes extensively from Ramanuja and Sudarshan Suri and all these acharyas, Vedanta Deshika and all that. Though Ramanujacharya did not write independent commentary, in his works like Sri Bhashya and Gita Bhashya and all that, especially Sri Bhashya, he has commented on most of the mantras of Kathopanishad, Shvetashvatara Mundakopanishad, Narayana, Taittiriya Upanishad. All these sentences he has covered in Sri Bhashya itself, in the Brahma Sutra Bhashya itself, commentary on the Brahma Sutra itself. He has commented on most of the vakyas of sentences of these Upanishads. But he didn't write a separate commentary on Kathopanishad as such. But the Kathopanishad mantras are all explained in Sri Bhashya and other works of Ramanuja. So, Rangaramanuja, what he has taken is most of it, mostly let's say 80%, he has taken as told by Ramanuja, Vedanta Deshika, Sudarshan Suri, earlier acharyas. And then he comments on some of the other sentences which are there. Some independent interpretations are also there, but they are all in line with the Vishistadvaitic system of thought.
Yeah, thank you. And I have also heard that Ramanuja's Sampradaya is the Shri Sampradaya.
Yes.
Can you maybe explain the connection?
Yeah, that also will come later, but it is because it is also accepted that Mahalakshmi is called Shri Mahalakshmi, who is also an independent entity and who is also inseparably associated with Brahman and has equal status with Brahman. So that is why it is called Sri Sampradaya. And we have to, when you do prapatti or surrender, we have to first take the grace of Sri Devi and then go to the Lord and all this. So that will come when we explain, talk about Prapatti, the means to liberation, one of the sections. We will talk about it in more detail later on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Shri is given an important place in this system. So it is called Shri Sampradaya.
Namaste. There was you mentioned quite a few commentaries on the Upanishads and the Vedas. Do any of these acharyas, they also write commentaries on the Itihasas, Ramayana and Mahabharata? I know you mentioned the Gita Bhashya, but is
Govinda, yeah,
there
there are commentaries on Bhagavata and Ramayana and all that based on the Vishistadvaitic interpretation. Like Govindaraja. Govindaraja is one acharya who has written a complete commentary on Srimad Ramayana based on the Vishistadvaitic system. And then for Bhagavata also there is a commentary. So all these there are commentaries for Bhagavata and Ramayana. But they are most basically following what is established in other works of Ramanuja and Vedanta Dishka and all these people.
I see.
Yeah.
And one more question. You mentioned prima facie view in quite a few places. I'm afraid I don't quite understand what that
Prima
means.
facie
Can you
view
explain?
is a Purva Paksha. For example, there is a particular Brahma Sutra which makes a statement. So in this statement, what are the views available for this statement? What are the interpretations for that sutra or for a Vedic sentence, let's say, Tattvamasi, let's say, Aham Brahmasmi. What are the different kinds of interpretations available for that? They are called the prima facie. And then what is our conclusion? That is Siddhanta. So the prima facie view is called Purva Paksha. That means the other opinions which are found in other commentaries explaining this particular sentence are a Brahma Sutra. And how we are different from that, how do we answer those views, how they are not correct or what is valid, what is not valid, why, and then we establish our conclusion. That is called Siddhanta. So both these are, if you understand what are the other views available, you will understand your view much better in the Vishistadvaita system, how it is established and why it is not what is told in the other commentaries. How do we answer those objections and all those things? So that is how it is. Commentaries are all written like that. You know, every commentator, right from Shankaracharya or Bhaskara or Ramanuja or Madhvacharya, they all write commentaries like this. They all examine the other views and then they state their view on that, answering the other views which are available at that time, for example, based on the commentaries available at that time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Adiyan Swami, in the Vedas we find 3 lines of this part of Veda and the Ghataka Shrutis. In the Divya Prabandhas also, are there similar thoughts like that, or is it only
Divya Prabandha is totally Vishistadvaitic only. You don't find any contradictions there. That is the advantage of studying the Divya Prabandhas. It is completely Vishistadvaitic system. You don't see any other views in that. Got only one view. That's all.
Adiyan Swami.
Tell me. Yes.
Swami, what do you mean when you say Brahman is qualified by Chit and Achit Vastu? I'm like not able to understand the word qualified.
Yeah, that's for example, an object has got attributes, right? So in this world, what we see is there are 2 types of attributes. Some are separable, some are inseparable. Like an object, a color of a person, for example, or a class of a cow is a cowness, is a class. A pot has a class, potness, it's called ghatatva, gotva, manushyatva. These are all class which are inseparable. You cannot separate out a class from an object. Every object belongs to a different class. This is how classification is done, right? And then the objects have got color, shape, and fragrance, for example, and all those things. These are all attributes which are inseparable. You cannot separate them from the object itself. But there could be separable attributes. For example, I am wearing a specs. I can separate the specs from me. So this is a separable attribute. When I am wearing the specs, I am a spectacled person, we say. That means I am qualified by the specs actually. So it is an attribute for me to know that he is a person who wears spectacles. This can be separated. This is a substance. So like this, inseparable attribute means you cannot separate it out. So in the world, we cannot see an object which is inseparable from another object. Color is not an object. Okay, color is just a quality which is inseparable. But specs is an object which can be separated, which has to be, cannot be inseparable. But we also see it in our body. For example, in our body, there is a sentient being inside who is very different and distinct from the body itself. The body, for example, my hand doesn't know that I am the hand. Does it know? My hand doesn't know that I am the hand. My mouth doesn't know that I am eating. Who knows that? There is a sentient being inside who is the knower, who is different from the body. And so, two entities are existing together as one. When you call a person like Krishna, Krishna, come here, are you addressing the body or the sentient being inside? We address both of them together. So there is a qualified entity there. The Krishna, the sentient being who is qualified by the body, is present there as one entity. Similarly, everything is qualified by Brahman, is what Vedas tell us. That is what is this qualified unity, we say. We will talk about it much later further. Yeah, very simply, I have just told in a very briefly. If there are no more questions, I will conclude today's session. From Sri Krishna.